Hello everyone and welcome back to this Football Manager experiment where we take a look at what would happen if you swapped the Premier League with the Vanarama National League South. Now we are now about 10 years in the future. We've done 6 parts to this experiment already. So if you're seeing this for the first time, you should go back and check those out. Now, when we left off last time, Manchester City had just won their 4th title in a row, pipping Newcastle to the top spot by about 14 points. Barnsley finishing in the Champions League places as well. Chelsea, Derby and Arsenal finishing in the Europa League places. Manchester United down in 9th place, and the non-league teams making up the bottom half for the most part. Whitehawk, Chelmsford and Eastbourne Borough, the only 3 left, with Welling finishing in 18th place. Now, something I didn't put together last time was that Eastbourne Borough actually won the FA Cup this last season gone, whilst in the Championship. So not only were they a former non-league team winning their first bit of silverware, they were also doing it from the Championship, which is even more impressive. They did win the Championship. They are going to be in the Premier League next season, but that shouldn't diminish what an achievement that was for them. As you can see, the English League did actually drop down to 5th below League a couple of years ago, so they still only have the 3 Champions League places available and 3 Europa League places available, but that will hopefully improve over time if the English teams can make a good run at the European competitions. Now what we're going to do today is move forward 5 years in time and then have a look at the league structure of English football and see how much it has changed in that time and if the balance has been restored at the top end of the football pyramid. Well, as you can see, we are now 5 years ahead in the future and it's looking a little bit familiar at the top of the league. Manchester City once again winning the Premier League, Arsenal finishing just behind them, Chelsea down there in 3rd and Newcastle also qualifying for the Champions League, so they must have restored that place above the Bundesliga, I think, or the Serie A to get their 4th position back for the Champions League. Manchester United finishing 5th, Aston Villa still up there as well, Spurs in 11th place. Now the non-league teams are very much down the bottom end of the table, but there are still 3 of them in the Premier League. Whitehawk in there, Eastbourne Borough in there, Ebbsfleet in there, and Liverpool getting relegated. They have still not established themselves as a Premier League team. Now let's drop back a few seasons. Last season, City again winning the title, 9 points clear of Newcastle. Chelsea and Arsenal also in there. Whitehawk made a strong run for the top 4 places, but finished 11 points short of Arsenal in the end. Manchester United down in 9th place. Brighton, Brentford and West Ham all getting relegated. Ebbsfleet still in there. The year before that, City again winning the title, but only by 1 point ahead of Chelsea and 2 points ahead of Newcastle. So close to breaking that dominance and getting another title for Newcastle. Arsenal finishing down in 4th, Spurs in 5th. United down in 9th as well, still a mid-table team. They've not been able to break into the top, but Chelmsford and Welling both getting relegated, which is sad to see. The year before that, again, City winning it by 20 goals. That was it. They finished level with Newcastle, who are so close to winning their title back, but they just can't break City down. Arsenal and Chelsea again in the top 4, so the Premier League teams making up the top 4. Just Newcastle holding their own as a non-Premier League team, still in those positions. United did manage to qualify for Europe this season. West Ham just bouncing like a yo-yo at the minute between the Championship and the Premier League. But a couple of non-league teams were still in there. And the one season before that, Newcastle did win the title. They managed to break City's dominance just 1 year after where we left off last time, finishing 3 points ahead of Manchester City. I'm very happy with that because if we look at the past winners now of this competition, City won it 4 years in a row, then Newcastle win it, then City win it 4 years in a row again. But Newcastle, the only team to have won it 5 years in a row. They've now got their 6th Premier League title since these changes were made, which I am very happy about. I'm obviously a Newcastle fan, and I think that might be a record for the most... Actually, I'm going to make myself look silly now, aren't I? I was going to say the record for the most Premier League titles won in a row. But no, I'm right. It is actually a record. I think Arsenal won it 4 out of 5. And Manchester United were close. Liverpool again winning it over a long stretch, but not managing to put together 5 titles in a row. And I know Ferguson only managed to do it 3 times in a row, even though he did it twice. So Newcastle actually hold the record for the most top flight divisions in a row. City will probably break that next season unless Newcastle can pip them to that title yet again. So something to look out for if we do go forward in time one more time. Now, if we drop down a league, we will see that in the Championship, West Ham still in there. They keep bouncing up and down. Now, Liverpool, I think they did get promoted in the end, didn't they? Are they in the top division? Yep, they got relegated last season. So they were the last of the big teams still down in the Championship, so they will be dropping back into that position. West Ham still in here. They keep going between the top two positions. Weston-super-Mare, Welling, Dartford, Gosport, all established now as Championship teams. Everton stuck in the Championship as well. Truro still in there as well, but not that many Premier League teams, if I'm being honest. If we drop through the years here, we'll see just the recurring teams like Everton still in there. The year before that, finishing in 11th. West Ham obviously bouncing back and forth. Everton still in there. Stoke were in there as well. Did Stoke get relegated a couple of years after that? They must have done. They got relegated back down to League One. So if we drop down to League One and have a look at who is currently in this position, Bournemouth did manage to win the title. Southampton still down in League One as well. Swansea, Stoke, Leicester, quite a lot of the Premier League teams stuck down here alongside the likes of Poole and other non-league teams like St Albans as well. So the Premier League teams, this is the balance where the worst non-league teams and the worst non-league teams and the worst Premier League teams have actually managed to meet together. That is League One. That is the equilibrium point. Obviously, some other Premier League teams and some non-league teams did better or worse than that. Some are still mixing in the Premier League. But this is the low floor for where the teams sort of bottom out. Now, in League Two, we do have Sunderland in there. They did manage to make it into league football in the end. Wealdstone winning the title. No other major surprise in here. In fact, Sunderland might be the only Premier League town. Oh no, Crystal Palace is still down here as well. And Watford obviously just got promoted back into League One. So let's have a quick look at the Vanarama National League as well. Wigan winning that, going back into league football. No Premier League teams down here, not ones that we put down here anyway. And are there any of the former non-league teams in here? There's not anybody that I recognise, but maybe you guys can let me know if I promoted one of these teams. But I don't think so. I think all of the non-league teams are still in the Premier League. Now, there's no sign of Middlesbrough, I don't think. If we just go back a few seasons and see if they did at any point manage to come back up, I really don't think they did. They are still in the abyss. If we have a look and search for Middlesbrough, there they are, still down in the regional divisions. They've been there now for about 15 years. They've got an obscure reputation, secure finances though, but the club just does not exist as far as the game is concerned. If we look at their general information, they've still got a £30 million value, loan debt of £18 million, which is incredible for a team that isn't even in a recognised league in this game. So that'll be interesting to see if they do get back up, if they can hold their position in the league, but it's the luck of the draw now and whether the game decides to let them back in. Now let's have a look at the Champions League. Now, in the first year that we left off, Manchester City did manage to beat Real Madrid and make it into the semi-finals. The only English team to make it that far. Oh no, Chelsea also made it through. Where were Chelsea? Oh, that's going forward a year. If we have a look at the semi-finals, they were then beaten by Dortmund. The Champions League eventually being won by PSG for the second year in a row. The year after that, Chelsea were in there with Manchester City as well. Two English teams. Chelsea getting beaten by the European champions PSG. City managing to overcome Juventus, which is a good sign. In the semi-finals, though, they were beaten by Atletico Madrid 4-3 on aggregate, just going out. That title, an all-Madrid derby, won by Real Madrid, as they usually are in the Champions League final. The year after that, Newcastle were in there. They beat Bayern Munich 3-2 on aggregate. Manchester City knocked out by Monaco in the semi-finals. Newcastle were beaten by Atletico Madrid, who played PSG in the final, eventually won by Atletico, who did manage to finally win their Champions League after being beaten by Real Madrid. The year after that, there was Arsenal, the only English team in the quarterfinals. They were beaten by Bayern. This Champions League eventually won by PSG. It's the same teams winning it year after year at the moment. And then I think last season, the final season, City, Chelsea and Arsenal all made the quarterfinals before getting knocked out by stronger opposition. And this one eventually won by Real Madrid. So if we look at the past winners, you can see it's the same teams popping up. The two Madrid teams and PSG have won it 6 of the last seasons before Juventus, Monaco and Barcelona had a few attempts. in the Europa League, I don't think we'll go through it stage by stage. We'll just take a look. But none of the English teams managed to make it there. Arsenal won it when we left off last time, but none of the English teams making the final at any point since then, which is really disappointing. I thought they would have kicked on and done it a little bit better, but that just wasn't how it worked out. And in the FA Cup, Newcastle won it last time. It was then won by non-league Chelmsford in the 26-27 season before City, Newcastle, City and United that went on to win it. Chelmsford, the only team from the former non-league to actually win the FA Cup now after Ebbsfleet won the EFL Cup. If we drop down to the EFL Cup, we can see that was Ebbsfleet winning it in 25-26. But then Sheffield Wednesday, West Ham, Barnsley, City and Spurs picking up the silverware. So it is returning to the familiar teams in the Premier League. Now, I think there's not an awful lot else I really want to take a look at. If we have a look maybe at the Premier League division facilities and transfers, if we look at the stadiums, we can see it's pretty much all the same as it was. The non-league team still down there struggling with poor stadiums, and the transfers are going to be pretty much non-entities. Manchester City selling in an £83 million regen. He looks pretty decent, but that was a lot of money for him. £70 million Chelsea selling a player to Real Madrid. Newcastle did eventually spend a little bit of money, £45 million on a player from Porto, but there's not going to be an awful lot in the transfers for us to take a look at because the names will all be unfamiliar at this point. So I think that will be it for this episode, and it might be it for this experiment as well. Now, if you guys do want me to go ahead one more time and just see where it really bottoms out, I think if I do it again, I won't go 5 years. I'll probably go 15, 20 years ahead of time to look at the real long-term impacts of this experiment. But let me know in the comments if you are interested in that or not. And also let me know if there are any bits that I haven't looked at that you'd really like me to take a look at next time. And I'm aware this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode, because I'm not really sure what else I can take a look at that would be interesting and make sense at this point. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on all of that. Also, drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more. But until next time, see ya.